The departments are holding the line, so they're doing more or less, as we would say. Look at police and fire. Again, those two make up the bulk of the budget. Their budgets from year to year are only the increase is really related to the pension obligation because they have held salaries are pretty flat. This is just showing the percentages that each department makes up of the total budget. So if you look at police and fire, again, we're looking at almost 80% of the budget. And then here's the breakdown for all of the costs. Personnel costs is about $10.5 million. Employee benefits is 1.7, contractual service 2.5, commodities 464,000, capital outlay 285,000, and a contingency of 27.5. And as you can see, personnel and employee benefits really is the bulk of the budget. There's really no other areas that really take up more of the budget than personnel costs. Contractual services, as you can see, that's been consistent from last year to this year, and a lot of that are contracts with police and fire that we just have to have. And so there's really no room there for any more efficiency than what we've already gained. And this is what it looks like on a overall basis. So again, revenues of about a little over $16 million, expenditures of $15.5 million, with a surplus of $532,000. So from that, we'll fund other funds. So the $485,000 negative that you see out is what we would use to transfer into other funds, leaving a net change in fund balance of about $47,000. And we add to our fund balance of about $5 million, leaving us a fund balance that we project for the general fund of a little over $5 million. So from here, all right, now we'll talk about our major funds, which are debt service, our capital, and our water funds. So the first one up is the debt service fund. We're expecting $627,000 in revenue. We'll have expenditures. Next slide. Oh, there we go. Nope. Is that it? That's it. Okay. I think we got it. There we go. All right. So debt service fund. So we have revenues that are coming in from property taxes of about $627,000. We expect that we would have to make debt service payments of about 1.4, roughly $1.5 million. That's a deficit that we would have versus revenue over the expenses of $836,000. Will transfer in, or this is the rollover bond that'll come in to make up this deficit of about $836,000. So we'll have no net change in fund balance. We have about an $80,000 deficit in the fund balance and debt service. And at some point, we probably transfer money from the general fund to kind of to get that back to a zero balance in fund balance. Capital projects. So we have about $577,000 that's coming in revenue. We'll have about $3.7 million that we expect to spend on capital projects in fiscal 20, leaving a deficit of about $3.1 million. We'll have some other financing that will come in about $62,000 for a net change in fund balance of a little over $3 million. We have a fund balance, beginning fund balance about $4.3 million. And so we'll end fiscal 20 with a $1.3 million fund balance. The water fund. So we're expecting the water fund to bring in about $3.5 million in revenue. We expect that we would have expenditures of about $5.4 million, leaving us with a deficit of about a little over $1.9 million. The water fund currently has a beginning fund balance of a little less than $9 million. So we'll end the year with a little over $7 million fund balance in the water fund. So those are the major funds. Okay, and these are non-major funds, and this classification is how they're classified in the financial statements. So that's the distinguish between major and non-major is based on the activity. So first up is the garbage fund. This gives a brief description of what the garbage fund is for. And then, so we're expecting about $671,000 in revenues, expenses of about $569,000, a surplus of a little over $100,000. We currently have a beginning fund balance of a little more than $70,000. So we'll have an ending fund balance in the garbage fund of about $173,000. IMRF is the retirement fund for full-time village employees, everybody except for police and fire. So pretty much here, the revenue that comes in is what we collect, and then we pay out Social Security and the contributions. So that'll be about $479,000. We'll have a deficit of about $267,000. We'll transfer money in to cover that of about $267,000. We'll have a net change in fund balance of about $64,000. We have a beginning fund balance of about a little over $28,000, and that's where we'll end the year for the IMRF. fund. Motor fuel tax is the money that we get, and it's restricted to street construction improvement. So we expect to receive about $355,000 in revenue. We have about a little over $1 million in projects that we have slated that we'll spend money on. We'll have a deficit of about $740,000, and we have a beginning fund balance of about $210,000, leaving us with a negative fund balance of $529,000 for the motor fuel tax. CDBG is Community Development Block Grant. We typically use these funds for alleys. So we're expecting $300,000 in revenues in grants. We'll have about $545,000 in expenditures, leaving us with a deficit of about $245,000. We'll transfer money in of about $245,000, leaves us with a zero net change in fund balance. We start the year off with a negative fund balance of about $246,000 is what we will end the year. Okay, so this is all our TIF funds. So I'll go through these different ones that we have. So the first one is the Roosevelt TIF. We're expecting revenue of a little over $600,000, expenditures of $619,000 for a deficit of little over $16,000. We have a negative balance, fund balance of a little over $1 million. So we'll just be adding to that deficit. The 22nd and 17th Street TIF. I believe this one is kind of winding down, right? So we don't have much activity in this. So the revenue is pretty much just interest income. The expenditures is the cost that we need to allocate to this particular fund for the audit. And we'll transfer in $871,000 to eat away at the negative fund balance. The fund is starting off with a $3.1 million deficit in fund balance, and it will end the year at 2.3 negative fund balance. The 27th and 23rd Street TIF, I have $93,000 in revenue. Expenditures are really the allocated cost of the audit, which is just a little over $3,000. So we'll have a surplus of a little less than $90,000. We have a negative fund balance of $210,000, and this surplus will bring that deficit down to a little over $120,000. 17th Avenue TIF, really there's no activity here. The revenue is interest income. It has a negative fund balance of $17,000, so it'll end the year with a little more than just about the same negative fund balance. 19th Street TIF, we have $128,000 in revenue, a little over $129,000 in expenditures for a deficit of $1,100. There's a $66,000 beginning fund balance, so we'll end the year with $65,000, a little more than $65,000 in ending fund balance. Okay. At this time, we can go through the departments, or we can entertain questions. Mayor, what's your preference? Okay, all right. Since I am here, I will go first. Get it out the way. All right. All right, so the finance department oversees and manages all of the financial operations of the village. Finance is responsible for providing internal customer service to the other village departments and maintaining the financial health of the organization in accordance with the annual budget and the requirements of the municipal code. The finance department directly oversees accounting, auditing, budget, debt issuance, purchasing, human resources, and payroll. All right, so the accomplishments for 2019 was we hired the great Leticia. We accomplished the 90-day goals for the administrative staff. Leticia did a great work with the HR forms, self-assessment, and employee performance appraisals, which I don't believe that we had prior to. She became a member of the Society of Human Resource Management. We organized the implementation of the Smart Safe and the check scanners. We prepared one dunce and Sam's member village-wide. Leticia did a great job with negotiating all of the union contracts, and we worked with the IT consultant. This is probably one of the biggest wins that we could achieve for 2019 was to get us off of the hamster wheel server that we had to some reliable hardware that we can hang our hat on. So great job, Leticia. So for 2020, the goals is to promote a value-driven organizational culture that reinforces ethical behavior, exercises transparency, and maintains the public trust. We want to continue to implement financial policies and practices that promote accountability. We want to provide accurate financial information that is easily accessible and, most importantly, understandable to the residents. Highlight financial successes and educate residents on governmental accounting. It's quite different than your normal corporate accounting. And then we want to optimize village resources through capital improvement planning, preventative maintenance, and asset management. So when we look at our budget, it is down from prior year. Little less than $8,000, but I think the mandate has been to look how we can be fiscally responsible and do more with less. So I don't think there's anything else. Anything else you want to add, Leticia, Tom? All right, who wants to go next? Dave? I'll cue you up. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. Building Department overview. The Building Department summary is as follows. The Development and Planning Services Department is responsible for administering municipal codes and zoning codes for the public safety of our residents and to protect our public health and ensure that we have orderly development in the community. As we take a look at our organizational chart, the next slide will show increase in staffing by 2. We have Miss Cassandra Yarrington is a new employee. She is replacing Linda, so she will be our full-time administrator. And then I've also hired a part-time administrator, which is Ms. Yvette Streeter. I also will be hiring another part-time administrator that will be assisting me with economic development. As my job responsibilities and role in the building department has changed per Mayor Thompson to move towards economic development and increasing revenue through the village of Broadview. And that's the slide I was just talking about. As you see, look at the admin staff. That increased. We'll still have the same landscapers, building inspector, and building commissioner will be the same as well. When we take a look at our achievements, our senior housing project, we started working on this in 2017 with Ross Financial, which is our consultant. February 15, 2019, we submitted our final application to IDA. And I know the mayor has some exciting news that will be shared with the board and the residents at our upcoming board meeting this evening. As it relates to village-owned properties, 2126 South 17th, that was sold recently to Habitat for Humanity. We purchased 2101 South 17th. That was the old Edmark Press property. That is part of our senior housing project. And 2412 South 9th Avenue, as well as 1426 were abandoned properties which the village purchased through working with Montana Wealth and the Cook County Land Bank. And so the 2412 South 9th will be developed and it'll be used by Public Works and I think the police department. And then 1426, we plan on selling that property and get it back on the tax roll. Enterprise zone. As it relates to the enterprise zone, back in 2000, the early part of 2018, the enterprise zone consists of Broadview, Bellwood, Maywood, Melrose Park, and Cook County. The enterprise zone committee was created to establish economic growth in the western suburbs. That being said, we submitted our application and we're working with Opportunity Alliance and we're just waiting for a response. And I anticipate that to be in June or July of this year as it relates to our designation of the enterprise zone in the western suburbs. That being said, once we get that designation, that will assist us in improving economic development in our community by bringing businesses in or developers in that we can offer tax credit to and tax exemptions. Village projects that are completed in 2017, we completed, the roof was leaking here at the Village Hall, so we did complete that. And as of recently, we're in our beautiful, renovated Village Hall. And also we have, Chief, the Ike 911 Center. Is that what it's called? The Ike 911 Center has been completed too. We still got a couple of punch list items, but for the most part, you guys are actually the first ones to actually be in here and to experience this newly renovated space. As it relates to working with businesses, current businesses and future businesses, our focus has been to guide them through our process, through the safety committee, if in fact they need zoning or they're looking to expand. And the new businesses that have come to Broadview, there's been a total of 26 for this past fiscal year. But some of the big boys are Buddy Bear Car Wash, Chicago Tribune, Blue Malnati's Pizza, Ross Dress for Less, and Vital Signs Healthcare. What we're looking to do in the upcoming fiscal year, now that we've gotten past the renovation, as I stated before, I think last year we're looking to update our department codes, our ordinances, and our forms. There's a lot of things out there that we did not consider that now we need to consider because life and times are changing, i.e. marijuana, video gaming, antennas, things of that nature that we'll be looking at. We're looking at animals ordinance. You know, it was used to cats and dogs. Now it's roosters and chickens and goats and, okay. We'll continue to attend seminars to help with our economic development and generate revenue. Ross Financial is one of the individuals we met as it relates to the senior housing project. And we, the Public Works Director and I met them in Washington, D.C. when we attended the summit there. Implement the Western Enterprise Zone. We're looking to get that done once there's a decision made by the state, but we feel very positive that we're headed in the right direction, and continue to purchase abandoned property and get it back on the tax roll, as well as village-owned property. We'd like to develop that. So we're not in the business of acquiring properties, but we're trying to get it back on the tax roll through development, economic development. As our financial director stated earlier, for us, our expenditures 455. We're down. We're up. We're up. So about 15 grand. Okay, 20. I know you're the finance director. Gotcha. 20 grand. I'll get the exact number. So, but yeah, we're up 20 grand. But for us, yep, in my opinion, you have to spend money to make money. The mayor's been gracious in working with us with not what we want, but what we need to do our job more effectively. And so I thank you for that, Mayor and Board of Trustees. Okay. Are there any questions? Well, at this point, we are continuing to go that route. When we talk about contractual services, we're talking about 2 landscapers to deal with. Yes, I was going to. It covers 2 landscapers. One that deals with vacant properties, and one deals with village-owned properties. And then we also have B&F, which is our third-party contractor that does a lot of our commercial and industrial inspections. When we were looking at the third-party contractors versus hiring someone in-house, what we looked at was what would be the annual salary for a full-time electrical inspector, a full-time plumbing inspector, plus benefits. And those 2 numbers alone are over $200,000. So I just wanted to explain how we arrived at what we did. So I don't know if you guys heard what the mayor said, but I forgot to mention workers' comp, which is a big, very expensive. Oh, I'm actually always speaking to Tom about economic development and the Roosevelt Road TIF because we do have some prospective developments coming up. I very seldom speak about upcoming developments because sometimes they don't come to fruition, but the mayor is definitely aware of every potential development that comes to Broadview. A lot of the developments or a lot of the projects that come to Broadview, it requires money. And as the mayor said, in our meetings, we're not here to fund anybody's dream. We're here to develop the community. And so if it can be a partnership, a true partnership, then we're willing to do that. But if you think you're going to come to Broadview and then we're going to fund you, it's not going to happen. And the second thing is that the development has to be part of our overall comprehensive plan for the Roosevelt Road corridor. We could fill up it seems like we have quite a few vacancies on Roosevelt Road, but we don't. All those properties are owned by someone, and they're in the process of being sold, or they're working through the deals. Sometimes the deals get done, sometimes they don't. But we definitely are willing to work with developers. We've got a few now that we're talking to on potential projects. but it takes time. Sometimes 3 months, 6 months, a year. Sometimes they change their mind specifically because of funding. Yes, there's about 3 or 4 things major in the pipeline. One thing I can speak on is the 17th Avenue in Baton, the gas station. That is going to be closed, and they are going to. It's going to be a new gas station with a convenience store as well as a restaurant. So I received those plans today, and we will be reviewing it. But again, that project may take a year or so, but it's moving in the right direction, and the owners are going to be the same. Thank you.
I'm just not on the computer. Where are they at? Is this your computer? Whose computer is it?
All right, good evening, everyone. So this is a snapshot of the organizational chart for the police department. If you look on the next slide, actually we have 37 sworn and non-sworn personnel. We've been holding steady for the last few years. So we do have 30 sworn police officers. We have 5 telecommunicators, 1 supervisor, and a administrative assistant. So we've been holding steady at 30 police officers for a few years now. Our achievements this year, we created an overnight parking permit program. This is for the apartment building, multifamily unit housing. And we created, I believe, 6 zones. It's worked out a few kinks, but I think it's working out well now. Just assigned an officer to West Staff Major Crash Unit. West Staff was our major crimes unit for if there was a homicide in the area, we would call in detectives from all over to assist us. What we found was with major crashes, DUI-related fatalities, we had to wait up to an hour for state police or Cook County to come out. So West Staff got together and we created a major crash unit. So we do have an officer in there now. They could be out within and have a road open, come out, assess the crash and have it open within an hour and a half. So it cuts down the time that the road is closed. Basically, we remained under budget. The main thing I want to stress here, for 2 years in a row, we were able to stay on the overtime. That's probably our biggest challenge right now because we have court, there are criminal cases, there's sick, there's disability, and overtime's the toughest to keep under control. We do work 12-hour shifts, and that's helped a lot to keep us under budget. Year to date, the Village of Broadview, we're 16% down on overall crime. We are 77% down on violent crime year to date. So it's really, thanks. It's all the guys in patrol. I mean, I know I take the credit, but it's all the guys, men and women out there. It really is. There you go. We replaced 2 frontline squad cars. We instituted online overnight parking program. So you no longer, we're anticipating, you'll see in the future, in the next slide, you'll see we're going to have the Act 911 Center working with Maywood and Broadview personnel. We don't want them answering for overnight parking. So now we have a online overnight parking, and it's worked out. I haven't heard very many complaints. A couple things we have to get worked out with the street sweeping and stuff, but we'll work on that. We did conduct a traffic study. The village board approved an agreement with Safe Speed to start the process for the red light cameras. We had our first law enforcement torch run. This was for Special Olympics. It had 6 communities. We had 21 runners and raised money for Special Olympics. We also implemented a policy for school keys and card access. What this is we can now get into Roosevelt and Lindau School at any time. If something were to happen within the school, a lot of times you have to get buzzed in. Well, it can't happen if something's going on in there. So we now have access to the key cards. We have access to the Knox box so we can get into school at any time now. The grant writer, we split with Chief Kenny. The grant writer, if you remember, there was some discussion last year. It's $14,000, so we split it. If you look here, this year we got over $200,000 from the grant writer. So we made. So the distracted driving one, I'm going to mention at the next meeting, $3,000 in overtime it paid, very successful, and it's a safe routes to school for the sidewalks, over $197,000. So our goal is, of course, to remain within budget. We hope to have Maywood and Broadview fully consolidated here at the Act 911 Communication Center. I'll have a more definite date within the next week. In fact, there is a Maywood personnel here right now. They're training as we go, so we could learn the system. We will be fully occupying the renovated areas. We have maybe 1 or 2 offices and the lunchroom we haven't been in. Other than that, we're pretty much moved in. We're going to maintain the fleet rotation, and if this budget is passed, purchase 2 new frontline vehicles. If we purchase those 2 squads, there is no model over 3 years old, and no models will have, every single frontline vehicle will have an extended warranty, which is going to save a ton on the vehicle repair costs. Because our cars, they go through catalytic converters for some reason every year, and those are $2,000, but they will be under warranty. Our goal is to be fully implementation of the red light cameras. 2 officers on disability. My goal is to replace both those officers. The frontline frontline squads will have new radios. Those are the 800 megahertz radio that the FCC is mandating us to have in our squads. We are budgeted for 2 a year. We do have a pending grant out there. We're hoping that we're successful on this to get the radios. And the new evidence and software procedures, what this is called the BEAST. It's the barcode for our property room, and this is actually connected with the Illinois State Police for the chain of custody. So it's going to alleviate a lot of the mix-up with the chain of custody when we're transporting the evidence to the crime lab. Next one. And our overall budget, you see, shows about 260,000 over from last year, but 412,000 that is pension. You take away that 412, we're 150,000 less than last year. So it's mandated. We have to pay it. So that's it. And any questions? Yes. One has gotten it and one is pending.
It doesn't work like any other.
Well, I have one. It's just the one that-
Yeah, no, it would make no sense. But I think I got it tonight. Should say career overview maybe 2018. Could be. No, it's not that. I broke the other one. Let's see if the other one will work. So if you go back and underneath it, there's another one. Overview 2019. No, it's not gonna open that. No, that's new. That's not what you sent me.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yay.
All right.
You sent me last year's to proofread. That's awesome. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So this is going to be our Fire Department 2020 overview. How do I go next? Down there? Okay. So I'll be brief because I know we've got a meeting to start. So it's a Fire Department summary, just the same thing that we say every year. Our mission is to protect lives and property. And I don't mean to be too quick with it. If you want me to send it to you, I'd be more than happy to. I just put the organizational chart in here again just so you could see. We did have 2 inspectors for the past few years, and that was to make the ISO rating improve. By bringing Anthony Monks in for 2 years on a temporary basis, he actually improved all of our pre-plans, updated them, things that haven't been done in years. So he was very successful and exceeded it by doing a lot of risk reduction. So that should look really good for us. And tonight he's being sworn in as the lieutenant. So he's made some great improvements for himself. Going down here for the budget, this is just the number of people, and the only thing, like I said, that has changed is lieutenants, that we lost a deputy chief and a lieutenant, and then Anthony Monks is going to be the new lieutenant there. Okay, so our achievements here, we did the Loyalist EMS contract increase, we did the Madden EMS and fire contract increase. Wait, see, now this one's different. Okay, so opened Triton College mentoring program. Now that we're bringing students in Triton College, we're increasing credits there. I'm just going to highlight the really important ones, and again, we'll send this to you. NIPSA and IFSI are bringing in classes to us for free of charge for us because we are hosting them here. That's a great cost savings in our education. We're trying to get ahead of plumbing and structural issues ahead of time. Redoing the plumbing in the building is key. That's our biggest problem. This building's really old. We're also having an exchange of services. If someone comes in and borrows our tower, we borrow equipment from them. That's really important to us. We increased the mechanics from 1 to 2, which we saw this year gave us a huge savings because a job that would have cost about $30,000 ended up costing us $16,000, and because they did their homework, they actually found that the part was faulty, and we actually went after them and got the money back for the entire issue. So they're very educated. And we'll go to the next part. Those are just the major ones. Okay, so our goals. No, see, now this is where it's wrong. So don't look at that. I have the real one. So the goals for 2020 are, we're to hire a new deputy chief because, as you know, Steve Mercick did retire. His last date is July 15th. We're working on two hires right now. We opened the tower and the basement for outside education and training, which should bring us in some funds as well. We're reassessing the vehicles for consolidation. One of the things is, and you'll see contractual services going down. We're working with other departments in the area. For example, hose testing. Everybody has to do it. We all do it at different times, and we couldn't understand why. So a couple departments came together. We're actually doing a hose testing service to one department and bringing the vehicles to them, thus saving. It may seem little in the end, but in the long run, if we continue to do things like that, besides hose testing, hydrant testing, things like that, we'll save ourselves thousands in the end. So it's new to us. We're working on it. Same thing with vehicles. Having an extra ambulance, we can actually be loaner ambulances and get rid of one of our engines, which is probably costing us a lot of money in insurance. But by getting rid of the backup engine and borrowing somebody else's engine when we need it, we're saving money there. So we're really talking about consolidating a lot of our assets to make, spend less money. Increasing grant opportunities. We do have 3 grants out there right now that we have not heard back from, but they don't open up for another couple weeks, so that should be forthcoming. We're talking about my idea. I'll talk about that at another meeting. The smoke detector program is going to continue until we run out of that money. Car seat inspections are still free at the fire department. Going on to our budget snapshot, we do have the increase in personnel costs, and I'll be quite honest with you, and I don't want anyone to think it's happening for any other reason but personal. I did not put in a raise for myself this year because I'm trying to keep up literally with the Joneses and the Uglings. Just so you know, our department heads have truly stepped it up and are finishing their education and taking it to another level. Bachelor's and master's. Yes, awesome. And I set that same goal for myself this year. I truly believe I need to bring myself up to everyone else's level and finish my education. I just received an excellent Office of State Fire Marshal class this past year, but it doesn't count until I get my education. So that's important to me. As well as, again, you'll look at our contractual services are down from last year. And again, it's the same thing with our pension. Unfortunately, that's the thing that really kicked our butt. So, and that's all I have. Right? Yes.
Yes. Clark?
Any questions? Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be really brief, especially since the clerk's budget only takes 0.3% of the entire total budget. So, excuse me. The Office of the Village Clerk records the proceedings of all village board meetings, including committee and special meetings, maintains all official records of the Village of Broadview, including minutes and ordinances, and is the keeper of the village seal. I also monitor the village compliance with Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act. The village clerk's office also serves as the local election authority and registrar for the voters. In 2019, we achieved quite a bit. We received, tracked, and completed all FOIAs requested to date. We reviewed, indexed, and codified ordinance to date. Reviewed all departments' record retention and submitted applications for disposal of older records. Briefly, that water tower held some records that went way back, and we went in there, Lily and I, and some of the public works, and it was a lot of dust, a lot of organization and sorting, and we were able to get rid of a lot of that old stuff through our retention program. We put the application in, and they gave us okay to throw a lot of stuff away. The clerk's tab on the village website is constantly updated. It's nothing that really needs to be updated now, but we will have some updates to come in the future. Let me go back a little bit. Currently, we are using a paperless system for board meetings. The only thing we print on board day, meeting day, is the actual warrant list and the agenda. And usually, I like to take notes on the agenda, so do some of the trustees. We successfully oversaw the 2018-2019 municipal election process. That went without a hitch. No lawsuits or anything, no electoral board needed. We organized the records to be retained and identified records to be disposed of in the water tower for the next disposal period. So we just had a community shred day in which we got rid of a lot of stuff, and we have another one that I'm sure the mayor or I will announce later on in tonight's board meeting. We successfully completed 1-year training with the Municipal Clerks Association. I went down to Springfield for a week and in October, and it's a 3-year program, and it's a really good program. I didn't realize how good it was until I actually got into it. It's an excellent networking opportunity. I communicate regularly with the clerks from the area, and we have a monthly meeting in which this clerk hosted back in March, and it was so good to have clerks and my peers from the other area, and we got to listen to one of the local attorneys give information on the Open Meetings Act. So to keep us abreast of all of the new stuff, new changes, so that we are in compliance. This is a snapshot of, sorry, what? Oh, you not do the goals yet? Oh, okay. Sorry, I skipped right over the goals. First and foremost, the clerk's office works hand in hand with the mayor's office, and our goal is to support the mayor in advancing her agenda for the village of Broadview. We have to make sure that we're looking good each and every step of the way. We also need to update our code books to reflect the most updated codification of all the ordinances that we have passed, indexed, and codified. So while our codification team has sent a lot of stuff, it's just a matter of filing those additions into the current code books, and that stuff is in my office, just needs to be filed. We want to stay current on all FOIAs as they come in, and they have been coming in pretty regularly this year. We also want to stay current on all codification of past ordinances. This way, anything that we pass in a board meeting, residents or the public can immediately or as quickly as possible go to the website, sterlingcodifiers.com, and see exactly what our current ordinances are. We want to complete and release the 2018 minutes. That's a mistype, 2019 minutes. It's a combination of the 2018 and 2019 minutes from our executive session. This needs to be reviewed, and then, yep. We want to build new records retention storage on the water tower. Once all that old stuff is out of there and everything's dusted out, cleaned out, we're going to build a filing system where we regularly, each year, get rid of the stuff that can be gotten rid of and retain only what's needed and organized. We're going to attend all the events and have a strong presence in the community. We're going to work with the webmaster to ensure that the agendas, minutes, and videos of all meetings are hosted on the village website. And of course, last and certainly not least, we want to operate the clerk's office under budget. This is a summary snapshot of the budget, which you can see is much of nothing. We've decreased our personnel costs by quite a bit since we are no longer in need of a deputy clerk. The mayor and I have been in discussion about that. And thank God she has been cooperative in getting us the assistance we need when needed with her executive assistant, Lily. We did, however, increase the contractual services, and that mainly comes into play when we talk about the legal support that we get from our attorneys. That was being diverted to the administrative, or I should say the executive line item, and it's now being shown in the clerk's budget. So that's why that increase is no increase in the overall budget, but it is showing properly in the clerk's office. And that concludes the clerk's report. Thank you. Any questions?
Mayor?
Yes, what's up? Good evening. There just wasn't enough work for the position as it was budgeted. And as we become more efficient in the department and do better time management, there's no real need. We'd rather have that money go towards another department that really needs that position. I was averaging about $2,000 a month in use for FOIA, for other legal things that we have to file. It was mainly FOIA, because we got quite a bit of them. That was it. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Boxes and boxes. I could show you pictures of all the stuff that has just been sitting that hasn't been done anything with. And, we have a records retention schedule that is, state mandated. And long story short, we have a lot of stuff that we didn't have to do. So we're organized, we're keeping what we need to retain, we're organizing it so that we know exactly what things are and getting rid of the stuff. You feel free to get your jumpsuits on and come up and see it anytime you want. You're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. As we conclude our budget hearing for fiscal year 2019, some of the achievements were the Ike 911 and municipal building renovation. So that included the IGA with the Village of Maywood and making sure that the relationships were tied into what was a state mandate. And I'm happy to say that we achieved something that probably a lot of residents were in opposition to, but when you walk into this building and you see the professionalism that's been displayed as it relates to what the 911 telecommunications center look like. It's very professional, and it's something that we will have years to come, and we can not only service the 2 communities, but we can service up to 4 communities. So I'm very pleased with that project. We did, as Commissioner Upshaw said, we submitted our application in February. We got just news as of early as last week. We applied for the IDA application to receive tax credits for the senior housing. This was the first time that the Village of Broadview has applied for the senior housing. And I'm pleased to say we are recipients of a senior housing project. So the project, we received $1.5 million in tax credits, and what that equivalent to is about $14 to $15 million to start this project. So be on the lookout for more information and how we go through this process, because it's truly a process from this point forward to next year to the following year. So we're going to have a timeline to get the project up and going, and so hopefully we'll be having a ribbon cutting ceremony somewhere in the next year and a half to 2 years to get it done. So I'm very happy about that. So congratulations to Commissioner Upshaw for working so diligently in bringing this to fruition. But to know that we applied for something the first time, and when we were actually at the board meeting to receive the award, and I just want to share this, only because when we was at the board meeting downtown on Friday to witness us being a recipient of this award, most people apply for this 2 and 3 times, and they don't get awarded. But we applied for it the first time and got awarded the first time. So that's a big deal for Broadview. Yeah. We've completed, and then tonight we will approve hopefully the Board of Trustees will approve our fiscal year 19 audit and budget. Trustee Jones had asked for the auditor to come to one of our board meetings. He failed to show up to that board meeting, so it continued on to be tabled. So the chairperson for our finance committee made a suggestion, why don't we host this in our finance committee meeting? So we invited the auditor to come to that finance committee meeting to present the audit to the Board of Trustees. So I'm hoping that the chair would make that recommendation tonight to approve our audit. I think we are very pleased with the audit, and if it's anything that you all would like to know about that presentation, it's online, so you can visit us online to review the auditor giving the presentation to the board through that finance committee meeting. The police department did apply for a Safe Routes grant, and that was approved for $197,938. This is a big deal in our community and some of the success that we have. When we stand behind leadership that run the day operations, although I am the mayor, I don't run the day-to-day operations. I support the day-to-day operations. So I really take lead on what those department heads do and what they want to do to push us forward. So we work really hard to bring good things to the Village of Broadview based off their operational. The support behind it, and our Board of Trustees is the support behind the policies and the procedures that go with the support that they have. So I'm very pleased to be working with these department heads on some of the ideas that they come up with. They are very creative. They recognize some of the deficiencies we have in our budget, but all together, they all work together to help each other when we get in that room when it comes to budget. I mean, literally, we get in the room together and they go line by line to help each other out. What can we do, or what can we take away to help you? We received the MWRD Green Grant for $582,000, so that's 3 alleys. And so even with that, when you drive through the north side on the alleys, and I've been driving the streets this past couple of weeks, and seeing the project take place in the alleys that's on the north side, I wish we could do all the alleys because they look so nice. And just driving through, the residents are pleased when we're driving through the community and we stopping them and asking them what's their concerns. And they still addressing potholes, and some streets are not favorable. But I do believe in being upfront and transparent. I don't want to play the politics to give them false hope, like something is going to happen and it's not going to happen. We want to be truthful and upfront regardless of how the conversation feels. So when we talk about doing the alleys and not doing streets this year, those are hard conversations that we have to have, although they don't know that we are doing streets in the Bragg Drive in the industrial area. So we have to share the resources and how we get it, but it's not off the radar for us to do it. We did welcome 26 new businesses to the community. That's a big deal for us because when you look at the hard work that Commissioner Upshaw put in to bring development projects to here and how we create sales tax revenue, because that's truly the only way we create revenue is through sales tax and through property tax. And nobody wants their property taxes to go up. I know I don't. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm speaking for everybody. But when we look at that, how do we get creative to bring solid businesses to town that can generate sales tax revenue where we can all benefit from that to provide more services? And one thing that I'm most proud of is because in the past we have not always recognized our veterans in the village of Broadview. And so last year we invited the veterans to participate with the village of Hillside. So I have to give kudos to Mayor Tamburino for just opening his door to me and my village to say we have veterans here. We want to recognize them, but we don't really know what that look like. So we include them into the dinner that they do every year in the village of Hillside, and our village is able to participate in that. And then I started brainstorming and working with Trustee Horn as it relates to veterans. What could we do? We don't have a lot to do, but it's little things that we can do. And so I thought it would be creative for us to just have vehicle stickers for all veterans and those in active military duty. So we just want to honor them and show them that we appreciate the service that they bring to us. I mean, that is not an easy job to put your life on the line for somebody you don't even know. So we appreciate our veterans. So fiscal 20 goals is to continue to remain to our fiscal responsibility, implement a 5-year comprehensive plan or strategic plan. And I had this on my goals, and some of the goals you're going to see year after year until we accomplish that. But when we talk about a comprehensive plan and a strategic plan, what that looks like for us is putting all of us together, working with our taxing partners, some of our business partners, and some of the residents, and putting a comprehensive plan that we can have to follow. I know when I took the seat as mayor in 2017, although they say it was a plan, it was not a written plan, so I didn't have really nothing to go on. So now we're starting to put documentation and putting it and making it plain for everybody to understand where the vision is for the village of Broadview. So this year, working with a board that we have with the newly elected trustees and putting that plan together and working with IDOT. And the only reason why I put IDOT in that, because when you look at the reconstruction that's taking place on Roosevelt Road, it was some things that had taken place that IDOT wasn't aware of. So I put in a call down to Springfield. The chief engineer came to the village of Broadview with their Regional 1 superintendent, and we had a really nice conversation as it relates to state-owned property in the village of Broadview. And like I shared with them, although we're small, you all have to include us in your plan because we know what the needs are. They don't know what the needs are. They just go in it based off, it's a road, it's state-owned, and this is what we're going to do. So I wanted us to have a place at the table when they're talking about reconstruction roads and what that look like and how that can interact with us. So I'm supposed to get a comprehensive plan from IDOT within the next, let me see, this meeting was about 4 weeks ago, so probably another 4 to 5 weeks ago, 5 weeks ahead to get the plan so that we can kind of base how we structure our plan as it relates to the streets and the alleys and all of that and kind of coincide with IDOT and what that looks like on Roosevelt Road on 17th and 9th Avenue. I still want to host the State of the Village address, so now that we have some things in place and we have some experiences up under our belt, now it's time for us to host the State of the Village. What does the village look like in the next 10 to 15 years? And so my whole platform is, regardless if I'm the mayor the next term or not the mayor the next term, whoever fulfilled this seat, I want to put them in a position that can carry the torch and continue to lead the village in the right direction, and that's forward and being better and being excellent. So we will, so that is still on my radar to host a village address, to be open and honest with our community. I also would like to create and implement a special service area program, and it's specifically on the Roosevelt corridor. So when I worked in the city on Chicago Avenue, I had a special service area, and the service area that I had was number 63. So the city kind of number their special service areas. And that's how we keep the corridor clean, safe, and monitored. And to put something like that on our police department to monitor the traffic or foot traffic or people standing outside the shops and stuff like that, we can kind of work with our business colleagues to help us bring this to fruition. So that goes to lead into say, now that we have the Broadview Business Association, which is our village chamber, now that we can get that up and going, and moving forward, we can include a SSA that will be proactive for the Roosevelt corridor. So when we're looking at businesses coming in to do business on the corridor, they more willingly want to participate because first of all, they know we're going to keep the front of their business clean, debris free. People is not going to be loitering in front of their properties, and we can keep the foot traffic moving along like it should do and not just standing on corners in front of businesses. Continue to build stronger partnerships with our park district, our library, and our community events, and continue to engage in our local schools to promote reading and volunteering. So I don't know if many of you know, I did adopt 2 classrooms, and so when you talk about a classroom and a teacher, they have limited resources. So in the limited resources that they have, I do a grant. The grant is worth $250 for the whole year, and it's just to help that classroom with supplies and to create the kids an opportunity to have libraries at home, because a lot of students don't have libraries at home where they starting to get reading material and then they can go back and reference to it. And that's real important to me because leaders are readers, and we want to make sure that our children are educated, and we want to promote literacy within our schools, because I do believe in the future Lindop will be a blue ribbon school. I do believe Roosevelt School will be a blue ribbon school, as well as Proviso East and West will be blue ribbon schools. PMSA is already one, so now we have to work really hard with our schools to get them to the status level where we want, because we get them at that status level, when you think about it, it increases our property values. And so that's the long-term vision, is to create property value where people want to live here. We don't want anybody not wanting to be here. We want them to be here, but we want them to know that we support our other taxing bodies. And then create a summer work program for Broadview residents. And I don't know what that looked like when you hear about our police and fire budgets and talking about pensions and all of those things. We have to kind of figure out how we make that work to promote our young people, to give them opportunities to learn this skill set or to put them in a trade. So I don't know what that looked like right now, but that is one of my goals, to kind of see that come out to play on how we promote, not just to give kids jobs just because it's the summertime and to keep them off the street. Yes, most certainly we want to keep them out of harm's way, but at the same time, we want to make sure that they get in a skill set that they can maximize and capitalize on for the future as they become young adults and get into the workforce and be responsible workers. So to create that program, that's a big deal for me. So when we look at our budget in the executive, you can see that from last year to this year, it has decreased probably about 60,000. And so, and that's just us cutting back on some things that we can cut back on, but most certainly working with the department heads on how we all work together. It's not just about the mayor's office, and a lot of times people focus on just the mayor's office, but in reality, it's about all departments. It's the clerk's office, it's the fire department, it's police, it's the administration, it's finance, and it's how we all work together to make things like this happen. So yes, although our budget is tight this year, but it's not unmanageable, and I do have high hopes and high expectation on what's to come in the future as it relates to how we get funding for certain projects. I did submit a bill, our capital bill, to our state leaders, and that bill was about a $30 million bill that we submitted. But we had only 4 projects that were shovel ready. So we know that those projects that we have that's in a preliminary status, we have to move them out of that status and get them shovel ready. So when we look at getting revenue in and we applying for grants, we're looking for them to fund these shovel ready projects so that we can use that money for those projects, and the money that we allocated for projects is actually back in the general fund so that we can provide more services to our constituents. So when we look at how this all play out, it's going to play out the way it's going to play out, but at the same time, we have to be diligent and we have to request what we need. And when you talk about senior housing project, and I know some conversation that came up about us having a lobbyist on board and stuff like that, the things that you don't see behind the scenes is when we have a lobbyist and we pay him $40,000 a year, but the conversations that he have with the people that have relationships that maximize that. I mean, we just got a $14 million project because of a lobbyist that we had on staff that could help us talk to certain people that we couldn't do that. So we're grateful for all of those relationships. So even though you can't see it tangibly, you got to see the results that come out of it. Like the grant writer, we got a lot of flux on the grant writer. But when you look at what we got for it, $200,000 in money, and we only paid $14,000, you got to look at the value. So our return on investment is huge. Even though initially when you see it, you don't see the end result, but the end result is really huge for the village of Broadview. So I am really excited about everything that's taking place and how we move the village forward. And I think with the Board of Trustees, we're doing a great job with the being upfront, honesty, and transparency, and most certainly being accountable. So thank you, and I guess we'll take a recess for about 15 minutes. Let us kind of recruit from this meeting, and then we'll go right into the regular board meeting.
Can I say something real quick before y'all leave? I just wanted to thank specifically the fire chief, the police chief, the mayor, and David Upshaw, who all together came up with about $370,000 in cuts so that we could have a balanced budget this year.
Testing 1 2 1 2. Testing 1 2. Definitely can hear it. Testing 1 2. Good. You can turn me up.
You only hear those first
for the Pledge of Allegiance. We all pause for a moment of silence. Thank you. Housekeeping. If you have personal electronic devices or cell phones, can you please set them to vibrate or silent at this time? Moving on to item 3, public comment. Item 2, public comment. The Village of Broadview encourages citizen input. Those wishing to address the village board on the public comments must fill out the attached speaker request form and submit it to the village clerk prior to the start of the board meeting. The president will then call your name at the appropriate time. When addressing the village board, your remarks are limited to 3 minutes. When the president recognizes you, please state your name and address for the record, and please speak loudly. Your cooperation is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Redmond.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson.
Podium over there.
If I need okay, good evening, everyone, and Mayor Johnson.
Good evening.
Administrators and residents. I am thrilled we do have the new 911 center and the renovations. I think it's money well spent, and I tell everybody, you get what you pay for. I want a couple announcements. The Broadview Food Pantry is having some fundraisers, and one is coming up Thursday, May 23rd from 5 to 8. It is a big hunger night. If you come over, if you go over, if you hear you're eating, you can request, we'll be there, it's a little form, that a portion of your purchase will go toward the Broadview Food Pantry. So I hope, tell your friends, please eat up, we need the money.
That's at McDonald's?
At McDonald's here, right on 17th and 22nd, okay? And then there's also a virtual online where you can donate. If you want to purchase like a sack of potatoes or whatever, if you don't want it to go directly to our food pantry, you can go through the Chicago Food Depository and earmark that money to buy potatoes, whatever else that you want like, to the Broadview Food Pantry, and those go directly how to do that. I volunteer. I want you to know that we had a rummage sale. We had a lot of people, even with the rain. We didn't make as much money as we wanted to make, but it is a step forward. With what was left, we gave to clients. I took a whole load of stuff over to the upscale resale because they're in our village. And so support the Broadview Food Pantry. We're doing a lot of good work for the clients and for the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Redmond. Ms. Gordon.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the people who have donated to ALS Association. The Walk to Defeat ALS is going to be held on June 1st at Cantini Park, or Cantini, however you want to pronounce it. I just wanted to say that if you're wanting to participate and join the walk, my team is called Tanya's Team in honor of my late daughter, Tanya. And if you want to just donate money, you can either donate online, go to walktodefeatals.org and look up Tanya's Team, or I do have a donation envelope with me tonight, and there are other people here in the village who have that. And if you're interested in receiving a yard sale sign, a yard sign that advertises the walk, please give me a call and let me know. I have about 4 of them available to hand out to people. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. With the, can you spell Tanya's first name? How are you spelling her first?
T-A-N-Y-A-S Team.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Clerk.
Okay, and that concludes our public comments. Moving on to item 3, communications. I have a ton of them, but I think first and foremost, we'd like to do the swearing in of Lieutenant Anthony Monks at this time. Okay, Lieutenant Monks, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I,
I, Anthony Monks,
having been appointed to the office of lieutenant
having been appointed to the office of lieutenant
in the village of Broadview, county of Cook, state of Illinois,
in the village of Broadview, county of Cook, state of Illinois,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
I do support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the Broadview Fire Department
of the Broadview Fire Department
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
Perfect, look at you.
Congratulations.
Either side.
Congratulations.
Okay, we'll move right along with communications. Let the record reflect that at 8:24, Trustee Jones has arrived to the meeting. On May 7th, we received communication from Chief of Police Steve Stetler from the Westchester Police Department. This is addressed to our Police Chief Kevin Eugeling that reads, on the afternoon of April 30th, 2019, an officer from our department was investigating two suspicious subjects in the area of Dickens and Mandrill Avenue in Westchester. When our officer approached the subjects, one of the subjects fled the scene in a vehicle, and the second was apprehended on the scene. Our officer gave a flash description of the vehicle. Officers from assisting departments observed a vehicle matching the description in the area. Officers attempted to stop the vehicle. The vehicle attempted to flee from the officers, however, was stopped a short time later without incident. The driver was immediately taken into custody. Upon an inventory search of the vehicle, officers observed what appeared to be suspiciously wrapped packages in a hidden compartment in the rear of the vehicle. A subsequent sniff of the vehicle by Officer Claimer and K-9 Officer Jacks resulted in a find of approximately 13 kilos of cocaine, as well as USC. The professional actions taken by Officer Claimer and Jacks resulted in the seizure of the vehicle, suspect cocaine, USC, as well as one Class X felony charge for the driver. I wish to extend my sincerest thanks to Officer Claimer and K-9 Jacks for their professionalism and assistance. Sincerely, Stephen Stetler, Chief of Police.
That's nice.
I'm sorry, I'm saying his name wrong, it's Stelter. That was very good. Thank you. On June 15th, from 1 o'clock to 3 p.m. here at Village Hall, Boys Build and Fly Minicamp. Boys, calling all boys ages 3 to 8 to build and fly model airplanes for boys. Join Mayor Katrina Thompson for an awesome minicamp for Broadview's young adventurers. We will learn to build model airplanes and take them to the skies. For more information, please RSVP to Lily Sierra at 708-681-3600, extension 259. or you can email Lily at ssierra, that's SSIERRA, at broadview-il.gov. A couple of weeks ago, we had the Community Shred Day. We had a couple of equipment malfunctions, and we're gonna have another one on Saturday, June 15th, right here at Village Hall in the parking lot from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That's gonna be hosted by the Village of Broadview and groups. On Saturday, June 1st, 2019, at 1 p.m., right here at Village Hall, we're gonna have a ribbon cutting ceremony. A community project years in the making. Join the Village of Broadview for the unveiling of the new renovation of Village Hall and the Ike 911 Emergency Communications Center. Again, that's Saturday, June 1st, 1 o'clock p.m. here at Village Hall. This is an announcement for the Broadview Park District Summer Camp 2019. Camp ages 3 to 13, the first session in June, from June 3rd to July 5th. Second session from July 8th to August 9th. Summer camp is going to be held at the Beverly Center, 3031 South 25th Avenue, Broadview, Illinois. Flyers can be at either of the back tables if you need more information. On Saturday, June 22nd, from 8:30 a.m. to 1 o'clock p.m. right here at Village Hall parking lot, we're going to have our second annual community-wide yard sale. Again, flyers are on the back tables along with the application. Get those in as soon as possible because you want to make sure those are in. We only have limited table space, so it's a first come, first served basis. And that concludes communications, Mayor.
Thank you.
Next item 4, consideration to approve the following minutes. Minutes from the May 6, 2019 regular board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been properly motioned by Trustee Horn, seconded by Trustee Tierney. Madam President.
Trustee Horn?
No question.
Trustee Tierney?
No question.
Trustee Senior?
No question.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
No comment.
Trustee Miller?
No.
I have one correction,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Clerk. On the regular board meeting, you have it at the, in the council chambers at 2350. On May 6th, we were still at the Park District.
I will make that change and get the changes out. Thank you.
Okay. Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, you can. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Aye.
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Senior?
Yes.
Trustee Tierney?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
And Madam President, that carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item 5, consideration to approve the expenditures, grand total of all funds, $474,701.34.
Motion to approve. Second.
Been properly motioned by Trustee Abraham, seconded by Trustee Tierney. Madam President.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Trustee Abraham, can you read the warrant list, please?
Yes, ma'am. For the warrant list, these are vendors that are over $2,500. First one is B&F Construction Code Services, $7,275.65. Commonwealth Edison, $2,901.58. Core and Main LP, $20,064.40. JJ Effect Incorporated, $5,025. Mavis Division 20, $6,000. Northeast Multi-Regional, $3,580. Norcom Public Safety Communication Incorporated, $4,481. Orlando Lawn Service, $3,050. Windstream, $3,629.40. Riley Construction, $318,120.91. Ross Financial Services Incorporated, $13,783.94. Sheriff's Work Alternative Program, $5,000. STP Transport, $5,650. Third Millennium, $7,273.39. Timothy J. Hicks, CPA, $3,125. Valor System Incorporated, $26,999. Yen Dung, $2,500. The total expenditures over $2,500 is $438,459.27. Total expenditures are $474,701.34 for a percentage of total of 92%. The funds that will be charged are General Fund, $124,738.23. Garbage Fund, $2,974.27. The Roosevelt Road Tip Fund, $127.33. Our Capital Projects Fund, $323,145.91. The Water and Sewage Fund, $23,715.60. The grand total for these funds is $474,701.34. End of my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Horn.
Who is Yanda?
Commissioner Upshaw. It's probably a reimbursement.
It's a reimbursement.
It's a reimbursement.
Okay,
Anything else, Trustee Horn?
that was it. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Tierney,
I have nothing.
Trustee Senior,
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham,
None.
Trustee Jones,
No comment.
Trustee Miller.
No.
Mr. Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, you can, Madam President. Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Jones,
Abstain.
Trustee Abraham,
Yes.
Trustee Senior,
Yes.
Trustee Tierney,
Yes.
Trustee Horn.
Yes.
Madam President, with the one abstention, this carries 6-0. Next item is item 6, Village Officer Reports, given at every second meeting of the month, starting with the Building Department Commissioner Dave Upshaw.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
trustees, residents of Broadview. The April 2019 Village of Broadview Building Report is on file with the mayor's office and the clerk's office, and the highlights are as follows. For the month of April, we had over $104,000 in revenue. We had 27 complaints. The complaints dealt with garbage, no permits, and contractor registrations. On May 23rd, which is Thursday, 3 to 5:30 p.m., there will be an open house, a meet and greet with Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson of District 1. His district office is located at 6614 West North Avenue in Chicago. Nicor Gas will be installing a two-way communication device in the village of Broadview. The device will connect natural gas usage information and securely send it to Nicor Gas. Most of the meters, the gas meters are in the village of Broadview on your homes and businesses are located outside, so they will be working outside. Nicor Gas has employed or subcontracted the work to be done to 3P Utility Services. And so they do have the proper identification, and they will be out, if they're not already out. I've seen them last week in the community putting these devices on. If in fact your gas meter is inside, then you should contact 3P Utility Services at 833-410-9592. 833-410-9592. I received some correspondence from Opportunity Alliance. Opportunity Alliance is the consulting group that we're working on as it relates to our enterprise zone. Last week, they attended the Illinois Association of Enterprise Zones Spring Conference in Springfield. Mr. Ridley was able to have public and private conversations with the Department of Commerce staff in attendance. Deputy Director of Business Development, Mr. Justin Heather, publicly stated that 14 applications were submitted and further indicated that he thought that there would be room for 14 new zones to be certified by his department. At this point, 14 applications were received. All were scored by the department, and the scores will now be given to the Illinois Enterprise Zone Board, and their next meeting will be July 24th in Chicago at the Department of Commerce office. And hopefully we'll get some great news as it relates to an empowerment zone designation, enterprise zone designation. And lastly, just wanted to let you all know that we will be moving forward with our senior housing project, and the mayor will talk about that in greater detail when she gives her report at the end of the board meeting. Mayor, Board, that concludes my report. At this time, any questions?
Trustee Horn?
Nothing, thank you.
Trustee Tierney?
Nothing.
Trustee Senior?
No.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
I was going to ask about the senior housing, but I'll reserve my comment until the mayor gives her report.
Trustee Miller?
In regards to the meter modernization that NICOR is doing, we could talk about this offline, but it seems like when NICOR does any types of upgrades or something to someone's property, it's always something that's damaged. My neighbor across the street complained about them installing a new meter, and they never replaced her grass. What steps are we taking to ensure that anything that, if they mess up anything, that they come back and repair or replace that?
I'm unaware of your neighbor or what that situation is, but going forward, we can talk offline, but you can let me know.
Okay.
And I can contact NICOR Gas and give them the information and move forward with the remedy.
Okay. I normally redirect them back to Public Works, but I'm gonna send them your way, man.
You can send it to Public Works too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Upshaw.
Okay, if any resident would like a copy of either the meter package or the meet and greet from the Cook County Commissioner Brandon Johnson, we have a couple of copies. All right, next item is the Finance Department Finance Director Tim Hicks.
Good evening, trustees, residents, staff. The financial report is on file with the mayor's office, but I'll give a brief synopsis of our financials year-to-date for April. Total revenues for the month of April were $719,865, while year-to-date total revenues are $15,013,304. Year-to-date revenues are unfavorable to fiscal 19 budget by $585,252. This is driven by other taxes, which is favorable by $940,000, but offset by property taxes, which are unfavorable by $946,000, and intergovernmental revenues, which are unfavorable by $401,000. Lastly, charges for services are exceeding budget by $192,000. As expected, property tax collection tapered off in April, but we anticipate in May and June that we will receive the final distributions for fiscal 19. Total expenditures for the month of April were $893,497, bringing year-to-date expenditures to $14.5 million. Year-to-date expenditures are about $400,000 favorable versus fiscal 19 budget. All departments are favorable or flat versus year-to-date budget. Overall, we expect the village to continue making financial strides as departments continue to the mayor's mandate to be fiscally responsible and work collaboratively. Revenues slowed down, particularly property taxes in April, where we received little or no tax distribution in the month of April. We did receive a distribution in May, and like I said, we anticipate receiving the final distribution for property taxes in May and June. We're at the end of the fiscal year, and revenues are only off by $585,000. And we still haven't received the final distribution for property taxes and other revenues that we anticipate collecting over the next 60 days. Expenditures year-to-date are trending favorable, but this is on a cash basis as we have not made the year-end accruals for expenditures we anticipate paying for fiscal 19 in the subsequent fiscal year. That concludes my report.
Trustee Horn?
Do I reserve questions related to our budget for that line item, or should I ask them now?
You can ask him now.
Okay, so I just had it's not really a question, but have a thought. I'm wondering if we're spending funds from previous fiscal years to accommodate some of the long-term projects that we want to do that was reflected in the budget that we spoke of earlier or that was sent to us. I'm wondering if it would be helpful to document like the expected return on those long-term projects
You know, so we're operating at a deficit, and we're spending money from the previous fiscal year.
We're not operating at a deficit.
Well, in the previous budget, it reflects negative numbers for the funds.
Which funds are you
For this,
referring
the budget that was presented.
No, that's not TIF fund.
The budget that was
TIF
presented
funds.
reflects negative numbers.
to? The fund balance, not the,
The fund balance reflects negative numbers, and we're spending money from previous fiscal years, remaining balances, whatever term we use, we're spending money from, that was saved to accommodate long-term investments, projects, what have you. And that's a good thing. I'm just wondering if we should be documenting the expected return so that we can monitor and ensure that we're getting what we expected, and we can make better decisions going forward.
I mean, you have to be specific on which
Okay.
projects that you're referring to, because we do
Well, we
take
didn't
that
list
into
the projects.
consideration.
But we didn't list the projects. Like the presentation that took place at 6:30,
Yes.
and we went through it, and we went through it in enough detail. I mean, it was a summary. The itemized projects weren't listed where we're gonna actually spend the money. But we know that there's a deficit. The numbers that were the expenditures exceeded the revenues.
So can I ask a question? Because trustee Horn, I'm not following you now.
Right. I
As you
think that's
talk about the funds, be specific in what fund balance are you speaking of? Are you talking about the water fund, the capital fund, the garbage fund, the TIF fund? We need to know exactly what it is you're speaking of.
Okay.
And I'm not clear on that. If you're talking about capital projects, we have the listing of all capital projects that's been allocated for this fiscal year budget. So just be specific in the question that, because I'm not following you now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a conversation that we could have in more detail in the finance committee meeting.
Probably.
All right. So can I get a moment to open up the budget, and then we come back and I can identify it, or do you want me to take the time and do it right now?
No, we can go ahead to not prolong the meeting, but I don't want to prolong the meeting, and you got a more in-depth that probably can funnel through the finance committee meeting, or maybe you and trustee Abraham and Director Hicks can sit down to exactly target what fund balance you're speaking of, so that you can get a clear objectives of what you're looking for how you hold accountability to certain financial contributions.
Okay.
So I don't know, but, I mean, I could circle back, but once we go through the line, we don't want to prolong it to get clarity, because we try to get all our answers, question, and understanding prior to the business meeting.
Well, so then I'll make a general statement for any fund that reflects a negative balance, regardless of what fund it is. Wouldn't it be helpful to just generate the expected return if we're spending money from previous years to accommodate long-term projects?
And then I think, again, for this business meeting, that's something that should have came up prior to, so that we're prepared to answer all of those questions to get the particulars to you.
Well, you guys been working on this for a while. It's not a sporadic question.
It is, because you're looking at multiple funds, and you're looking at our general fund, and you're not specific, and you clearly stated that it's a general, or it's a fund with a deficit, and you wasn't clear in what fund you were speaking of.
No,
So in
to
all due,
provide-
please let me finish. In all due respect, if you need to look up whatever you need to look that up, but what I'm asking you is to come to a business meeting prepared by having that conversation with the finance chair and the finance director, so that we don't prolong the business meeting to get whatever your concerns are. We want to address them, but we also want to be very transparent in what you're asking, because what you're asking for is deficits, but you wasn't
No, that's
specific.
not what I'm asking.
No, there was. Look
No,
at the
so
tape.
if we're going to talk about, I spent 4 hours with, so maybe Director Hooks, with all due respect, maybe you don't have the answer. I spent several hours going through the budget with Mr. Hood, and we talked about every line item reflected in the budget. And so it's not specific to the deficit. This is a general statement related to us spending money on projects, and wondering if it would be helpful to simply document the expected return from any project where we are spending money from previous fiscal years. That doesn't require you to do any type of in-depth analysis. That's just simply saying I will commit to providing a return on investment statement for any project where I spent money, so that we as a board can say, yes, that was a good decision, we are experiencing or realizing the expected return. Or no, we don't want to do that statement.
Trustee Horn, you're approaching this as if we are a corporation. We
Right,
don't
and we're
make
not.
expenditures and investments seeking necessarily a return on investment. Like, there's
We don't.
no return
No.
on investment in
We don't sell
paving
products.
a road. You know, there's no return on investment for some of the things that we have to do from a
That's
capital
true.
project standpoint. Like, we don't utilize,
That's true.
we don't look at ROI on the capital that we need to do, because it is not the criteria that is used, that you would utilize to determine whether or not we're gonna do the project or not. Because we wouldn't do half of the projects that we do if we use that solely as a criteria.
Okay,
So
that's a
I
fair.
get what you're saying.
That's a fair statement, I understand that. So with something such as the IEPA loan, that will be a loan. That means we're taking and using money, we're borrowing money that we don't have. It's a loan.
That's not true.
How is it not true if it's a loan? If we
Okay.
have it, why we
Trustee
taking a
Horn,
loan?
I just gave a report on his financial.
Director Hicks, Trustee Horn, we spending a lot of time and you keep moving the conversation to something else. So let's be real clear on what it is that you're asking. When we get to the IPA loan, as it relates to the legislation, we can address all of those concerns and the monies and how we fund that loan back. But you went from deficits to funds
No, I
to
think I'm being
ROI,
extremely
so you
clear.
all over the place right
I
now.
don't think I'm all over the place at all.
Please let me finish, I have the floor. But what I'm saying to you is, you keep moving the conversation and moving the pieces. So with that being said, Trustee Tierney, do you have any comments?
Can we let the budget officer speak?
I have the floor.
Well, I
Trustee
spoke to him
Tierney?
for 4 hours, and if he can
Trustee
provide some
Tierney?
clarity,
I have
he
nothing.
should be able to speak.
Trustee Senior?
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
I got just a couple things. Director Hicks, you talked about us being 585,000 off in revenues. What percentage of that is going to be coming from property taxes? And do we know what the percentage of property taxes that we've already received is versus what's exposed at this time?
Yes, so we've collected about 85% of the property taxes that we levied for fiscal 19. So we expect over the next 2 months that we will receive all or more of that. Because, once the period is over, we still have about 60 days to that, those spending those funds for the prior year.
Well, I'm aware of the time, but that was, to your point, 85%. So would you say that this 15% is going to cover the 585,000 shortfall?
It'll cover that, and it'll also cover, you have to think that there's other revenues that we.
Well, I guess a better question
that'll
would.
come in as well.
Pardon me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I need to interrupt you. I guess a better question would be, 15% would be the equivalent of what dollar amount? Approximately. 750,000, 800,000? Mr. Hood, do you have the answer? I said, do you know what 15% of property taxes is gonna cover? Approximate dollar amount? The reason I'm getting to this is, once we get 100% of property taxes, I wanna make sure that we're. It's about 900,000, okay. So we would be talking about actually a surplus of about 3, approximately.
So you have to take that into consideration with the fact too, that we're still not done spending money for fiscal 19.
Well, I'm just talking about what you talked about. You talked about 585.
Exactly. So
And if I'm just using raw numbers based on
Exactly.
today's conversation,
Yes.
it's a positive number of 3 once we receive the money.
Yes.
Okay. And I apologize for my absence in the budget meeting, but I got a question, and it was brought to mind by the conversation with Trustee Horn. In our budget hearing, I guess we did not identify the specific projects. Is that an accurate statement? The specific capital projects, we did not identify them in the financial exposure in the budget?
We did not
Okay.
go over the
Or-
specific projects.
Okay,
Yes.
so we didn't go over specific projects, okay. And I guess just for Trustee Horn's sake, ROI is probably not the right acronym or the right question. I guess what she's trying to find out is what we're getting for our money. Not a return on the investment, but if in fact we're gonna spend X amount of dollars out of this fund, what are we getting? We're gonna get roads on Braga Drive, we're gonna get buildings somewhere else. I think that's what she's looking for. So that's why I'm asking, if the projects had been identified, the funds had been identified, I think we would have answered all of her questions. And I don't mean to speak for the trustee or you guys either. Just listening to the dialogue here, it just kind of clicked into my head.
But those projects have already been identified. She had a meeting with trustee.
No, but it wasn't in the budget hearing, is the point that I'm making. And that's why I asked it, I prefaced it. Huh?
In the essence of time.
Well, the budget hearing lasted an hour and a half. The budget hearing went till 8 o'clock. In the essence of time, I don't think.
We went through each project.
You know what, we could debate this for a while, but I'm not gonna get into that. My point is that, I don't know, we don't have 50 projects. If we've got 4 or 5 projects, how much more time would it take us to say, we got this project, this is what fund balance, what fund is gonna come out of, this is how much it's gonna cost. It's just that simple. It wouldn't have taken very long. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, what was it? And that's okay. I'm going to wait until the mayor talks about the senior citizen thing. That's the other thing on my mind. That completes my comment.
Thank you, trustee Miller.
No.
Mr. Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
We're
I
not
mean-
doing a roll call. This is the finance department.
Thank you.
That's a committee.
Thank you, Director Hicks.
Okay, next we'll have the fire department, Chief
I'm
Tracy
already
Kenny.
on the next.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
The emergency responses for the month of April, during the past month, we responded to 246 emergency calls. They included 1 response to a garage fire in North Riverside, a natural gas leak in our own town of 17th and Roosevelt, 1 house fire in Stone Park, and a structure fire at Pioneer Park. We had a total of responses to Loyola 37, Hines 33, and Madden 3. Fire prevention, we had 141 total monthly activities and 98 violations cited. For the month of April, we billed $21,850 to Loyola, $22,650 to Hines, $1,900 to Catholic Charities, and $2,250 to Manna Mental Health, for a total billing of $48,650 in the month of April. I did want to mention that we put out today that we have our Camp Weekend 2, June 28th, 2019, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the fire department. It's for girls ages 10 to 15, and we'll waive lower and higher as we get kids coming into it. We have 5 signed up already out of 30 spots. ComEd is helping us and getting all the t-shirts for the girls. Lou Malnati's is providing lunch for them. So join us for a day of empowerment and come and hear about all the amazing things that girls can do too. We will have women here to talk about their awesome jobs, the kind of jobs where men usually dominated the profession, but that's changing because hashtag we can too. It's all about diversity and equality. You'll hear from women in jobs such as firefighters, police officers, welders, drone specialists, and more. So get the word out there. It's going to be a great camp for girls that we have every year. And that is all I have today.
Thank you, trustee Horn.
Nothing, thank you.
Trustee Tierney.
No questions, but I do have a comment. On Wednesday, this Wednesday, May 22nd, we have the Fire and Police Committee meeting right here at 7 o'clock. So be
We
there.
have a big project coming up between police and fire that we're going to talk to you about that night. It's really exciting. We're going to be kicking it off this summer.
Okay, that's all I have.
Trustee Senior.
No.
What's the date for weekend 2 count?
Yeah, of course, I just hit this one. I believe it's Friday, June 28th.
Okay. Trustee Abraham.
None.
Trustee Jones.
None.
Trustee Miller.
No.
Thank you,
All right,
Chief
thank
Kenny.
you.
June
All right,
20th.
next we have the police department, Chief Kevin Ugly.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In the month of April, the police department responded to 1,252 calls for service. 35 cases were assigned to the detective bureau, 15 were cleared, with 2 arrests being made. 15 previous cases were cleared with 3 arrests. So total for the detective division is 132 cases. 96 were cleared with 22 arrests with a 72% solvability rate. Some of the events we participated in training was a career day at Lindau School, medical marijuana, advanced roadside encouragement, participated in a Hines Hospital active shooting response training. That's the first one Hines has ever done, so it was a unique experience there. Attended the opioid epidemic in Illinois put on by the Illinois Municipal League. Also, we had the distracted driving campaign last month, and that was partly to do with the grant 74 distracted driving tickets, 110 tickets in total. So the stops were made for distracted driving, but one thing led to another. There were a couple warrants and arrests, suspended licenses, arrests. Upcoming events is June 2nd is the second annual law enforcement torch run. It's going to start at the Westchester Police Department at noon on Sunday, June 2nd. We will go down Roosevelt Road to Williams Avenue, and we'll end up in Forest Park. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Horn?
Nothing, thank you.
Trustee Tierney?
I have nothing.
Trustee Senior?
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
What's the status of the triangle operation? Have you guys been actively, and when will you guys be back in Broadview?
They were doing it like every, like second or third Thursday. Now it's gonna be as needed.
Mhm.
So no longer gonna be a set date. If there's something happening in a particular community, you know, they got a shooting, murder, whatever it is, they're gonna.
And the reason I ask is because I know the season's changing and things tend to get a little bit different in the summertime.
It's warming up already, yeah.
Exactly.
Actually, yeah, maybe we just had an incident in one house over our border.
That's why I'm asking. Okay, well, so it's as needed now, okay. That's it.
Trustee Miller?
None.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, next up, we have Public Works Department Director Matt Ames.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good
Board of
evening.
Trustees and everyone in attendance. You all have the Public Works Department report on file, but I will try and highlight a few things that I think everyone is curious about, and that is, A, the meter replacement. The meter replacement is going very, very well. In the month of April, there was approximately a little bit more than 400 meters that was swapped out. And we have had just a few hiccups in those installations. Sometimes we go into residents' homes and they have old pipes, so they're encouraged to bring in their own plumbers to make those minor repairs before the meters can be replaced. A final letter will be forthcoming, and the second and final letter informing the residents that they have received the first letter, and if in fact they do not respond by making an appointment, that the water service will be interrupted. So we're trying to expedite this and get it done before the summer's out. I know we've got some debugging with conversion from units to gallons that has to occur. I believe we've got a meeting scheduled this Wednesday with all of the staff and the outside vendors. As you all would imagine, April has brought quite a bit of street complaints, potholes, and things like that, as well as forestry. And part of the challenge, as you all know, is the inclement weather that we've been having. And it's kind of difficult to go in and fill potholes when it's full of water. The good news is that we're prepared as soon as the weather breaks to go out and address those issues. In April, we were understaffed as we operated, but we are looking to bring on additional staff as recent as this Wednesday. We've interviewed, and we hope to have the staff to address what you said, which is an email for the sign. So we know that we've got an issue village-wide with our sign. We will be doing painting of crucial areas. We do have our compressor up and running. The equipment that we purchased has been very, very helpful and useful over the last couple of months, as the department is being cross-trained in the operation of both front-end loaders, sweepers, and skid steers. And at that, Mayor, I will conclude my report and entertain any questions or comments the board may have.
Thank you. Trustee Horn?
With the replacement of the water meters, the costs related to, going to an upgraded system, you know, and so that we can capture accurate rates, et cetera. When I think of, I know that maybe the term ROI is not the right term to use, but the fact is that the reason it was prudent for us to do that is because we were not capturing the right numbers, or we were losing money or something related to that because we had such an old archaic way of managing the water rates or billing for the water. Is that an accurate statement? In summary, I'm trying to keep it simple. The reason we needed to go to an upgraded method was because the archaic method wasn't accurate.
Well, it's not necessarily that it wasn't accurate, and so again, let's dispel that, because we've had a lot of residents claim that the high water bills was attributed to faulty meters, and that's not accurate.
Okay.
One of the chief reasons is we were expending approximately 240 man-hours a month, just a reason. So that would take 3 public works employees out of rotation for approximately a week. And that's including the rereads and some of the final reads. Couple that with the fact that we were experiencing not calibration issues, but issues that would be eliminated, obviously, with newer equipment. So,
okay, and so that makes sense to me.
Water loss.
Right.
Water loss meaning some meters were leaking. But
Okay, and so my only reason I'm bringing it up is because when we expend money, and we're spending money, it just seems like that's a good reason to spend money. And there's going to be a return expected from the money that we spend. Because in other factors, man hours, et cetera, we expect those things to decrease because we now have more sophisticated ways of capturing the water, saving water loss, et cetera. So it would just be helpful if in some type of way, I don't care if it's called a ROI statement, whatever statement, government statement, whatever the right terminology is used, to document that and communicate it so that we have it on paper and we can measure it and see it. What do you think?
I don't.
Well, you do. That's why you're director of public works. But that's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, in point well taken. I think, well, let me say this, Trustee Horn. I think most certainly with the expenditures of public funds for any capital outlay, I think the metrics can be measured in a variety of ways. Convenience, for instance. I know that we were able to look at a resident's home right away and tell her that you have a leak in your home. Our smart meters now triggers an alarm, okay? And because of her, this particular address, the normal usage, if it spiked above that, which it had, we were able to determine that she had a leak, although she argued, no, I don't have a leak, it's just me and my daughter, and I've had people, plumbers up in here and so forth and so on. Ma'am, our smart meters are saying that there's approximately 19 gallons that was used at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, so forth and so on. And simple suggestion was to put food coloring in the tank and to observe it, whether or not it would come out in the bowl. And I didn't get back from the resident. So, and let's, so when you talk about returns on investment, I think that for anybody that may have a water leak unbeknownst to them, as opposed to receiving a $300 water bill, they would much rather know about it right away. So, yeah, I mean, the capital purchases that we made in terms of equipment. One of the metrics is that, hey, we've got a mechanic that's not expending 20 hours in repairs and services.
Right.
And of
I just
course,
think it's valuable information that should not be ignored and should be documented and captured. But thank you. I won't take up no more time. That's obviously.
Thank you, Trustee Tierney.
I have nothing.
Trustee Senior?
None.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
One thing, Director Andrews, you talked about we have some debugging to address as it relates to units versus gallons. I guess the question that I have is, so the smart meters are measuring the water in gallons versus units,
Yes.
and the old meters are measuring the water in units versus gallons.
Yes.
So do we have an impact on our financial infrastructure as it relates to billing in the two different methods? I mean, are these people being able to be billed accurately with our current infrastructure? Or do we have new infrastructure for the billing cycle? And is there an impact, good or bad? And, you know, can somebody answer that?
In terms of,
I mean, could it be cause for somebody to get an excessive water bill because they're being billed at the wrong rate, as units versus gallons, or gallons versus units? Or could they be getting away with not paying enough?
well, let me say this. Every location that has been replaced is being converted right away. Those individuals that have not been replaced, obviously, are on the old unit of measurement. So those are separate. What they're doing is they're migrating, okay, the old units to the new units according to the installation. So, for instance, if we haven't visited your home,
Right.
all right, you're still at 748 gallons
Whatever.
for one unit, all right? For those individuals that we have replaced the meters in, it's capturing, or the conversion, rather, is the usage per gallon.
So you're using conversion already? I guess that's the
Conversion,
question.
right.
So you're already converting it from gallons to units to gallons or gallons to units?
That's correct.
Okay,
But-
that was the
but-
question.
But like with anything else,
Mhm.
you know, there's gonna be one or two incidents that you have to make sure that the system is flawless. So there is, as with anything, I mean, you go to get a manicure, in my estimates, one nail may not turn out the way you want it. Okay? However, that doesn't mean that you have to accept it. So we are monitoring that, the building department, along with the public works, to make sure that everybody's billed fairly. And if in fact somebody thinks that they have not been billed fairly, then we do the proper investigation. We examine the meter, if it's an older meter, to make sure that it is performing the way it's supposed to. If it's a newer meter, for the most part, we haven't had, to my understanding, a whole lot of
Bless you.
the new meters and the rate conversions from units to gallons.
Okay, so is there any further debugging that you're talking about? When you say debugging, exactly what do you mean?
Again, just rolling the whole program out, and one of the bugs is getting folks to respond. That's one of the bugs. One of the bugs that I found was that we've got letters that are being returned, returned to sender, undeliverable, vacant. So, yeah, absolutely, there are some bugs in the system. I mean, we've got,
So are the letters going out to the owners of the property or to the residents that are on file?
no, to.
Whoever the water name is in the water?
That's right. And of course, you know, that, when you.
I already know.
I mean, that system is obviously full of bugs.
Infested. Okay, well, that completes my comment. I just wanted to understand the billing aspect of it.
Trustee Miller?
Yeah, I have a couple. So, you mentioned the vacant homes or return letters that you're getting back. What process are we taking, especially on the vacant side, to ensure that those homes can get the updated meter? That's one question. Second question is, new development on homes. Are we ensuring that before those homes are sold to the next owner, that they have did the replacement meter service at the time of the sale then? Only have those two.
So, the letters that are being returned, I've instructed one of the employees to literally you have to remember. The residents receive a letter and they're instructed to call you and I to schedule an appointment. Okay? And I'd rather stick with that system to make sure that it's blanketed as opposed to pulling out what may or may not be accurate from a transfer stamp within the building department. So, no, to your point, or to your question directly, no, we are not installing meters because somebody's buying a house or somebody's selling a house.
I don't mean buying or selling, I mean the homes that are being rehabbed. Like, if they're going through the process.
Not
Okay.
if the homeowner requests.
Okay.
If the homeowner requests it, absolutely, we want to expedite. You know, we want to eliminate the process of you having to go through and scheduling and having somebody come out. If in fact, you come down to Public Works and you say, hey, look, I've got some plumbing work done, hey, you guys are putting in new meters, is there a possible way that I can get one expedited? Absolutely. We're going to try and expedite that service.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Ames.
Thank you, Mayor. You all have a good night. And we'll see you at the next one.
Yeah.
Thank you. Next is the Administrative Department, Village Administrator Letisa Jones.
Good evening, Mayor, Board Trustees, residents.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Here's my report for the month of April 2019. The Administrative Department had no insurance claims. As far for water issues, the following were addressed: 5 penalty fees, 20 rereads, and 4 billing issues. The focus that has been in our Administrative Department is properly staffing each of our following departments for the summer. In Public Works, we had our first round of interviews in April. We're following up with our next round, which is here in May. In the Building Department, we're looking for a part-time administrative assistant, where we started our first round of interviews in April, and we're concluding in the month of May. For the Administrative Department, we are looking for a part-time cashier. We had our first round in April, and we're following up, wrapping it up in the month of May. Currently, there are no updates on any union contracts or collective bargaining units right now. And I'm happy to say that MB was sold out to Fifth Third. We completed that transition as of May 6th. We are up and running. We have connected the building department and also our water department. So we're running on Fifth Third right now, where we haven't had any issues as far as with our deposits and our transitioning for our checks and balances. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Trustee Horn?
I'm happy Fifth Third's in the neighborhood, but nothing, thank you.
Trustee Tierney?
I have nothing.
Trustee Senior?
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
One thing, in your report, you said you had 4 billing issues. Can you quantify the 4 billing issues? When you say billing issues, what does that mean?
Well, because we're doing the transition when it comes to our water, where we had a couple of our residents, where they had called me in order of where they either spoke with, another resident or a trustee, so they brought it to my attention in reference to, okay, what is going on with my water bill, and of where we addressed it, where we did the rereads, like our Director Ames said, we did the rereads to just ensure that, you know what, it wasn't on the village. If it was, then we initially we were proactive in order of looking at the bill, analyzing it, and if we had to do adjustments, we did it at that time. So we had 4 of them.
So it wasn't a reread, it was a billing issue, so were they billed excessively? Is that what you're saying?
It could have been, okay, how we started is that anything units over 5 units of where we do the rereads. So if it's lower than 5 units of water, we had residents that may have called and asked us, hey, you know what, can you just send somebody out in order to go to reread? And we did that as a one-time common courtesy for the resident, for the business owner.
So that falls under reread.
Yes, sir.
So what's the difference between a reread and a billing issue?
Well, because with the billing issue, if they have it, where we're talking about like the usage, or where they were questioned, they were asked, okay, you know what, I got 4 units of water and my bill was $39.81 versus last month I got 2 units and it was $32.40.
So a billing issue would be part of the process for a reread?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That completes my question.
Thank you. Trustee Miller?
No.
So just let me clarify some things. The best practices that were in the past administration, we've changing some best practices to be more efficient. And so how we look at rereads and people, those that complain about their water billing, we've tweaked the process a little bit. So it's not the way that you initially implemented, however you guys did it in the past. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you. That completes our village officer reports. Next item is item 7, old business. Letter A, the resolution authorizing and approving an agreement with Edwin Hancock Engineering Company for the furnishing of professional design engineering services related to the IEPA low-interest loan water main improvements for the Village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Motion to approve?
Second.
It's been properly motioned by Trustee Horn, seconded by Trustee Tierney. Madam President.
Trustee Horn?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Trustee Tierney?
I don't have any questions.
Trustee Senior?
No questions.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
I have no comment.
Trustee Miller?
No.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, you can, Madam President. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
No.
You say no?
No.
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Senior?
Yes.
Trustee Tierney?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
Madam President, this carries 5-1.
Thank you.
Item 8, new business. Letter A, presentation and approval of audit 2018-2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Properly motioned by Trustee Abraham, seconded by Trustee Tierney. Madam President.
We had the presentation at the last Finance Committee meeting. Trustee Abraham, do you want to speak highlights, or Director Hicks or Budget Officer Hood as it relates to the outcome of the financial audit?
Yeah, I'll say a little bit, and then
Okay.
I'll turn it over to Director Hood and Director Hicks. I thought it was a very well done. Questions were answered by the I can't remember his name. That showed. Pardon me? Jason. He did very well. It was a great presentation. He went through, because the trustees did receive the 2 different financial books, so whatever questions had come up, they were answered. So I'll have these gentlemen now, if they want to break it down a little bit further and do the highlights that he had spoke of.
Well, I'll be real brief. The audit was, we got an unqualified opinion, which is the highest opinion that you can get for the audit. They, in their management letter, they had some recommendations that we will definitely take into consideration and start to try to implement. But overall, the audit was, it took a little longer than the normal audit, because we had to do a what they call OPEP audit, which is other pension employee benefit, which is healthcare. The last audit was done like 5 years ago, and you have to do it every 5 years. So we had to get that audit done as well. So, I mean, that's really much the main thing is that it's an unqualified opinion, and we get to do it all over again coming couple weeks.
All right, thank you. Trustee Horn?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Trustee Tierney?
I don't have anything.
Trustee Senior?
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
Nothing.
Trustee Miller?
No.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Aye.
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Senior?
Yes.
Trustee Tierney?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
Passes 6-0. Next item B, September is National Suicide Prevention plus Action Month. Proclamation, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So I thought it was important for us to make September National Suicide Prevention and Action Month. As you guys have read in the recent news, we've had 3 young people who has committed suicide, and so we in the Village of Broadview want to be proactive as we talk about mental health care. And since we have the living room right here in town, I think it's time for us to partner and start being more proactive and having these conversations to save lives. So the proclamation read where.
Before you read that, can I please get a motion in a second?
Yes.
I just wanted to let them know what
All right, I'll motion
Okay.
to approve.
Second.
All right, it's been properly motioned by trustee Abraham, seconded by trustee Jones. Madam President, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So whereas September is known around the United States as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and most of us are quite aware of suicide, National Suicide Prevention and Action Month is intended to help promote and give attention to suicide prevention services available to us at our community. The goal is to speak openly about the topic of suicide to help erase the stigma surrounding it and to direct those in need to the appropriate support services. And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background, and whereas according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP, more than 47,000 people died by suicide in the year 2017. And whereas suicide is the 10th leading cause of death amongst adults in the U.S., and nearly 20% of all suicides were completed by people ages 45 to 54. And whereas Broadview, Illinois is no different than any other community in the country, but chooses to publicly state and place our full support behind parents, local educators, mental health professionals, athletic coaches, PAC leaders, police officers, firefighters, and elected officials as partners in supporting our community and simply being available to one another. And whereas local organizations like Suicide Prevention Services, SPS, national organizations like National Alliance on Mental Health Illness, NEMA, and international groups like Hope for the Day, HFTD, are on the front lines of war that many still refuse to discuss, as suicide and mental illness remain too uncomfortable of a topic to talk about. And whereas every member of our community should understand that throughout life struggles, we all need occasional reminder that we are all fighting our own battles. And whereas I encourage all residents to take the time and check with their family, friends, and neighbors on a regular basis and honestly communicate their appreciation for their existence by any gesture they deem appropriate, a simple phone call, message, handshake, or a hug can go a long way towards helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer. Now, therefore, I resolve that I, Katrina Thompson, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2019 as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in the Village of Broadview. Trustee Horn?
Nothing.
Trustee Tierney?
Nothing.
Trustee Senior?
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham?
Definitely yes.
Trustee Jones?
No comment.
Trustee Miller?
So in the portion where we're putting our support behind the different entities, how hard would it be for us to add any organization that supports conversations with suicide awareness?
It's not.
Because it seems like we limited it to certain entities, and I would like for us to at least say that we're supporting any other organization that is a part of the suicide prevention service or services, for that matter. And it was one more that I had, and while you were reading it, I totally disregarded it. But for the most part, I just want us to say that we're supporting the entire initiative, regardless of what person is pushing the conversation.
Well, we have to, I understand what you're saying, but when we're talking about professional organizations versus community organizations that's not qualified or have the expertise at the level, we want to be real careful on who we partner with that can initiate the conversation. As it relates to individuals promoting this, we want to make sure that they get behind those partners that we support, like NAMNI, the Living Room, River Edge Hospital, Loretta Hospital. Those are the professionals that have the background and the expertise to have these conversations. So it's not to minimize or underestimate what an individual can do, but we want to make sure that they partner with the right ones to have the support behind them that can give them the expert level of these types of conversations.
I'm not asking us to name out organizations. I'm asking us to clearly state that just like we're supporting parents, we're also supporting extra organizations as well. I mean, a parent isn't versed in what we should do when those suicide talks come, just like an elected official isn't versed in what we should do in those suicide talk conversations.
Yeah, but it clearly states mental health professionals. So what exactly are you speaking of?
So would you consider the Living Room a mental health professional?
Yes.
Okay.
Because they
I
are.
wouldn't, but okay.
They are certified counselors over there.
Okay.
They are.
I'm pretty sure that if I walk in and talk to the receptionist, she's probably not necessarily a certified counselor.
Yeah, but they recommend the counselors to have those conversations, and the police department have a really good relationship with them because they encounter these people on a day-to-day basis. So they actually recommend those that they meet on the streets to the living room for the additional counseling.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Clerk?
Okay, we're gonna take a vote to approve the proclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing no opposition, Madam President, this passes for 6-0.
Thank you.
Item C, an ordinance adopting the annual budget for the Village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been properly motioned by Trustee Abraham, seconded by Trustee Jones. Madam President?
Trustee Horn?
I want to thank Mr. Hood, Director Hood, for spending all the time you did with me going through it. I did go through the entire budget line by line, and it's a sound budget. It makes sense, so thank you.
I have nothing.
Trustee Tierney?
I have nothing.
Trustee Senior?
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham?
I just want to compliment Director Hood and Director Hicks again for putting in the time and putting this together. And again, it was very well done and explained to the trustees. They were available to anybody that had additional questions. So again, I want to thank you for your guys' time to do that, to meet with the individual trustees, because as I always say, you know, they're the experts. Meet with them, ask them the questions, and get your answers. So thank you again, gentlemen.
Thank you. Trustee Jones?
I have none.
Trustee Miller?
So I didn't get to meet with you guys in regards to the budget. However, I understand how budgets work, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit with each department head and figure out what it is that they actually think they need. There are a couple of line items that I do want to talk to you guys about, but I'll talk to you offline because I know a budget isn't a final estimate of what we're going to actually spend. So I'll talk to you about it later.
Thank you. So I just want to say, not only to our finance department for doing a good job to bringing all the pieces together, but the budget conversation actually start way before the department heads meet with the finance team or the board of trustees meet with the finance team. The conversation is always a conversation. So we just want to say that we appreciate all the hard work that the two of you put together in, you know, making sure we get clarified answers, whether you spent 25 minutes with us or if you spend 6 hours with us. The budget don't start the moment we have the initial conversation. And a big kudos to our department heads. I lead by not micromanaging department heads because we work literally as a team. So I appreciate them when we have these budget discussions. And just let me give you a synopsis of what it looks like for us. So when we start the conversation for the budget meeting, the departments get all of their budgets together. It's their wish list. And after that, then they meet with the finance team, and then the budget officer usually tell them we could do this or we could keep it there, and then we all get together. Then we open it up to where we all meet together. So it's the department heads, the finance team, and all of the department heads. And we kind of hash out what we can help each other in their respective budget to balance their budget for operating costs. Once we solidify that, then we open it up to the trustees so that they have a window of time to go through the budget. They have all the questions that they need to answer, get answered so that they clear on what takes place for them to operate day-to-day operations with this budget. So this year, between all of the department heads and the clerk's office and my office working together, what we cut the budget by about $370,000 that we was able to trim, but that's all of us working together. It wasn't just one department giving up something, it was all departments giving up something so that we can have the budget that we have today. So we do plan to continue that format as we, work on our budget. So with that being said, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, you can, Madam President. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Aye.
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Senior?
Yes.
Trustee Tierney?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
And Madam President, the budget passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Next item, D, a resolution appointing trustees to committees and committee chairperson positions for the Village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been properly motioned by Trustee Abraham, seconded by Trustee Miller. Madam President?
Thank you. Trustee Horn?
Look forward to working with Mr. Upshaw. Thank you.
You're welcome. Trustee Tierney?
I have no comment.
Trustee Senior?
No comment.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones?
None.
Trustee Miller?
Just waiting on your announcement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's that?
Never mind.
Can we get a roll call, please?
Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Aye.
Trustee Abraham.
Yes.
Trustee Senior.
Yes.
Trustee Tierney.
Yes.
Trustee Horn.
Yes.
Madam President, that carries 6-0.
So just let me say, so that the public knows, so the committee chairs for Water, Drainage, and Health Committee is Trustee Judy Miller. The Finance Committee is Trustee Judy Abraham. The Police and Fire Committee is Trustee John Tierney. Street Sidewalks and Alley Committee is Trustee Andrea Senior. Business License Committee, Trustee Sherman Jones. And Public Property Committee is Trustee Verena Horn. So be looking out for their announcements when they're gonna host their committee meetings. So I'm sure they're gonna be doing that soon, that we know Fire and Police is this week. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item E, a resolution agreeing to indemnify the state of Illinois for photo enforcement equipment attached to IDOT facilities for the Village of Broadview, County of Cook, State of Illinois.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It's been properly motioned by Trustee Abraham, seconded by Trustee Jones. Madam President?
Thank you. So the purpose of this resolution is to memorialize the village agreement to identify and hold harmless the state of Illinois for any claims that may be made against the state of Illinois, its employees, agents, and the Department of Transportation as a result of attachment and operation of photo enforcement equipment to the IDOT facilities. Trustee Horn?
Nothing, thank you.
Trustee Tierney?
Nothing, I'm just excited to get this going.
Trustee Senior?
Nothing.
Trustee Abraham?
None.
Trustee Jones? Trustee Miller?
No.
Roll call, please.
Yes, Madam President. Trustee Miller?
Yes.
Trustee Jones?
Aye.
Trustee Abraham?
Yes.
Trustee Senior?
Yes.
Trustee Tierney?
Yes.
Trustee Horn?
Yes.
Madam President, this carries 6-0.
Okay.
Item 9, application for the authority to expend funds. We have none at this time. Item 10, village clerk. Just wanted to reiterate the second go around for the shred date. Again, we had a shred date. A lot of people came out. We had some equipment malfunction, and we promised that we would get a second one going. So this next community shred day again is Saturday, June 15th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. right here in the village parking lot. Madam President, I don't have anything else at this time, so we're going to go to item 11, Village President, Mayor Katrina Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So first of all, I would just like to say, welcome home, Broadview. We are finally back in the village chambers. And it's a really good feeling. So when I think about the conversation that took place tonight and Trustee Horn asking about the ROI, when we look at our return on investment, this is part of that investment. So this is how you can look at return on investments. When you look at streets being repaved, that's not really an investment, but when you invest, like securing investments with bonds and securities and stuff like that, that's when you start looking at your return on investment. What does that maximize? So when you look at a facility like this, and we took bonds out to do this, now we're looking at our return for investments. Another good example of a ROI would be the IEP low interest loan. Although we complete infrastructure, but the infrastructure for the water mains, that's an investment because those infrastructures are, water mains are a long period of time. So like the current infrastructure that we have for our water main, some of it is probably 60 to almost close to 100 years old. So when we look at our return on investment, we look at spending money to make a long-term investment such as replacing water mains. But streets, I mean, that's gonna always be evolving over so many years that, you know, what we can spend. So not to say that we minimize your concerns, but when we look at investments, you gotta say, how can we make it tangible? And you look at tangible items like a building or water infrastructure, anything that's infrastructure that's long-term, like that's gonna last longer than us, okay? I do wanna say, I think the promotion of Lieutenant Monks was a great, great promotion. This guy have so much wealth of information to give back to the village of Broadview, so I'm so happy. I'm gonna miss him as the inspector because he's so thorough in his job that he do. I hope he still continue to be that thorough in his new role as a lieutenant, but just to get behind him and support him in that leadership role because now it's managing people, which is different than managing a project. So we have great aspirations for him. The clerk did announce that on June 15th, we will have a day for the shred day. Hopefully the mechanics is working on the truck. But also the same day, we're doing a build and fly, and that's for young boys ages 3 to 8. We're gonna show them how to build airplanes. So that'll take place here at the Village Hall, and that's from 1 to 3. Property exemptions. If you have not applied for your property exemptions, whether you're a senior or you own your home, go to the Cook County Assessor Office and apply for your exemptions. We're not in the cycle for them to reassess your property yet, but you can apply for this every year. So this is something we should be applying for every year. So I'm encouraging all homeowners, whether you're a senior or just a person with a mortgage that's got taxes, apply for your exemption because you qualify for it and it's your money to have. I went to a seminar that the assessor had, I think, one day last week, and he was just talking about if you had not filed for an exemption in the last 4 years, you're able to qualify for the past years if you haven't did it. So if it's money on the table, don't leave it on the table. Make sure you apply and get what's due to you. Communication. So as we go through this, part of my platform when I ran for mayor was to be able to effectively communicate with our residents. And so we got a functioning website. We do social media. We do robocalls as reminders. So I think the last thing for us to do would be the email. So getting on the email, because we do get some concerns with the robocalls because of past history of, the misuse of the robocall system, but I think we use it in a very responsible way today. But some people don't want to get on a robocall because of things that happened in the past. So that prompted me to go into a more of an email blast type things where you can get a reminder through an email. So we're going to be collecting email addresses and putting that database together so that we can communicate. Now we have several sources. So we have our newsletters, soon to be email blasts. We'll still do the robocalls until we get the emails up and, be more efficient for reminders, and then the social media. So please, when your water bill come out, it's going to be a line on there to collect email addresses. So if you don't mind giving us your email address, this will be the first step. Or when you log onto the website, it's going to prompt you to put in your name and your email address so that we can capture the data so that you can get on our email list. And finally, I would just like to say, it's hard working with people when you want to move forward. So I'm very pleased to say that as we started this project to renovate this building and we had to completely move out over to the fire department, the Broadview Park District, we called them and they stepped up to the plate for us. They didn't charge us to use the facilities. We had all of our committee meetings there, all of our special board meetings, even if we had meetings with investors or people looking to do business within the village of Broadview and we didn't have the space at the fire department, they allowed us to use their meeting space and they didn't charge us. So we are forever grateful for that type of relationship. So when we talk about the different taxing bodies, these are the relationships we should have because our tax dollars play into all of these different systems, and I'm sure if the library was up and functioning, we could have went there as well. But nevertheless, I'm here to support all the taxing bodies. I'm sure the newly elected trustees and some of the trustees on the board want to support the taxing bodies as we move forward because at the end of the day, we're all friends and neighbors. And so that's the platform that we want to create, that we're friends and neighbors and that we can work together even if we have differences. We do have some issues with the library as it relates to the general contractor bailing out on them and how they make that deal out and how they make up for what needs to get done. And so we'll just continue to wait to see what that's going to be. But I don't want it to be where we bashing them or we talking negatively about them, only because at the end of the day, it's Village of Broadview Public Library. So it's still us, so we should be helping them, but at the same time, that leadership over there has to be held accountable. The same accountability that you all put on this village board, you should be putting the same type of pressure on that board as well to get the job done and to be diligent and to be open and to listen to those experts that can help you. Some of the elected officials over there, they still want to sue the village. And so, you know, we have to start holding people accountable. And it's not that we're running from a lawsuit, but why we keep suing ourselves when you haven't diligently done your job to get all the players to help you move that project along. So the only thing that I'm asking is that you all hold them the same accountability that you would hold us to the same standard. I think that would be fair, and that would be accountability at all levels. So regardless of how you feel about the different conversations, it is what it is. We just have to move forward. But we have some really good relationships with the Park District, and we have some really good relationships with our schools. So hopefully we can build that same relationship with the library and move forward and help them get this project and get the library open and functioning, and just let the past be the past and just move on to the future and the future of Broadview. So with that being said, that's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been properly motioned by trustee Jones and seconded by trustee Tierney to adjourn this meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Hearing no opposition, we are hereby adjourned at 9:42 p.m.